But Drew Hernandez is a strong-minded individual.
Exposing lawlessness.
Hernandez, who is ideological.
Finding the truth.
And use the word Antifa.
This is what they do.
Battling
They're
mainstream
liars. The woke mob, all they can do is lie.
These are the front lines.
At 13 years old, Chloe Cole began transitioning to become a boy, undergoing cross-hormone therapy, even having her breast removed. Now she's 17, has transitioned back to a girl, and says that no child should have to experience what she did.
My name is Chloe Cole, and I'm an 18-year-old former transgender child. I transitioned from the age of 12 up until 16 when I realized it all was a lie. I realized the beauty of motherhood was stolen from me by medical professionals who my family entrusted me to.
We had no idea these so-called doctors and therapists were just butchers and liars. If I can reach even one child with my story and change the trajectory of their life, I would consider my mission successful.
I realized that I wanted to be what I always was and forever will be, a woman.
Absolutely empowering. Chloe Cole, first off, I just want to say I'm super proud of you for what you're doing, what you're saying, because I know it's not some kind of grift, right? There are people that grift, that try and get into the right, and, I'm going to be the difference here, blah, 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 blah. But you are saying things and you are doing something that is literally speaking into the face of the devil, okay? Because I've seen what these people advocate for. I've seen what these people cheer on and they celebrate. And I just want to commend you, and I just wanted to say I'm proud of you and everything that you're doing. Chloe Cole, welcome to the front lines.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on.
I'm so glad that you're here. I know I would be shocked if my viewers don't know who you are. I would be shocked if they've never heard your story before, but I don't always assume that everyone has heard it or everyone has, gotten the chance to hear from you. And maybe now's their chance. So Chloe, could you just kind of give us the background of your story of what led you to now? And who you are?
I'm an 18-year-old detransitioner. I used to identify as transgender throughout my adolescence. I was transitioning between the ages of 12 to 16. My medical transition started at 13 with puberty blockers and testosterone, and then at 15, I actually got a double mastectomy, meaning that both my breasts had been removed. And I stopped transitioning at 16 because I realized that I made a huge mistake and that I was making decisions that I wasn't really equipped to.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's kind of dig into, how you got to that point. What would you say, kind of like, I don't know if the word indoctrinated you is the right word, or the word that got you to that point where that was something that you wanted to do? Was it like something trendy as like a young teenager that got you wanting to do it? Were you like watching TikTok? Was it happening at school? What led you to want to go through something like that?
So for me, it wasn't really a thing in school when I started, and TikTok wasn't a thing yet either. But social media, I would say, was one of the, if not the biggest catalyst in me transitioning. I feel like if I wasn't exposed to the content that I was exposed to so young, then it just wouldn't have happened. I mean, I was already kind of vulnerable because, growing up, I was kind of a little bit of a tomboy. I was kind of, I would say, like half girly, half tomboyish. But as I got older, I started developing like more masculine tendencies, like you could say. But it just got more difficult to socialize and relate to other girls my age, and so I kind of just gravitated more towards like the boys. And I also had some body image issues because I was kind of more on the athletic side. And I had like big shoulders, and I was just a few years into puberty. I was I wasn't very developed, but I was seeing like all these images on social media of like super like curvy, super like developed women, so many of which who had like plastic surgery like on their faces and their bodies. And so I was just kind of being presented this unrealistic image of what a woman or a girl was supposed to look like, and I started to wonder, like, is there something wrong with me? Like, I thought I looked like a boy for the longest, but
so is that
the idea
so is that kind of like, is that where like the the content kind of jumps in, where you're already asking questions in your head, and then you see something on social media, and that kind of leads you down to the direction like, oh, hey, well, maybe you're trans.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the so I made my first Instagram account at 11, and I was seeing like super like sexualized, super idealized images of women, as well as like other posts made by women and girls were kind of just like, oh, being a woman is just awful. Like periods, pregnancy, childbirth, it's all just painful, and the positives of being female were never really talked about. And you know, I didn't really have any strong female role models growing up, so it was just kind of like I was already kind of dissociated from being female a bit. And then that's where the like a bunch of like LGBTQ content kind of started to come in. Like I was in a, you know, at the time I kind of liked a lot of video games and cartoons, and in a lot of those communities and people who posted that kind of stuff on Instagram, it was like for some reason there were like a lot of the people that posted that kind of stuff were also just so happened to be like teens who identified as like bisexual or like non-binary or transgender. And so I started being recommended like a bunch of LGBTQ content, and especially like the majority of it was like teen girls who were my age, like maybe like 12 to 19 years old, who identified as non-binary or trans-masculine or as transgender boys. And I was just kind of almost like force-fed that kind of content by the algorithm on Instagram.
Wow.
And so after a while, it just kind of like, I just kind of started wondering, am I like actually a girl? I actually started with like experimenting with like all the labels I see, because you know they got like all these words and all these like flags and stuff, and like it's so novel, and it like appeals to kids. And you know, I was kind of at that age where, you know, I was like 11, 12, starting to like wonder about like who I really was. So it just kind of, it was like all these pieces just kind of like clicked together. And after a while, I kind of just had this idea that maybe I'm not actually a girl. I think I'm actually a boy, because, you know, it made sense to me at the time. Like it was like, well, I'm not like other girls, and I like boys more, and I don't like having my hair long. And
So a lot of the content that you were seeing is, I would say, maybe like a confirmation bias, because you're having all these questions in your head, and you're questioning your sexuality, you're questioning reality.
Yeah, it was
so. Was a
kinda-
lot of the content, did it provide like any facts? Did it provide anything like that, or it was just basically like telling you like, hey, you feel this way? Well, maybe you're trans. Like, was it more like that kind of stuff? Like
it was there was some information provided, but like it was very skewed. You know, after a while, I started to browse communities that were not on Instagram, like Reddit, and even like resources provided by actual like medical like healthcare providers that had like information on like socially transitioning, like gender therapy, or like the actual medical aspect of things like hormones and blockers and things like that.
Well, let me ask you this: what led you to go from, you're asking questions, right, about, you know, your sexuality, your identity, sexually, and all that, and you're seeing on social media a kind of confirmation bias. Okay, well, maybe I am. Here's this community opening up their arms to me. So once you kind of like made that decision, like, okay, I guess I'm trans, what led you to start going down the path of starting to go through the bodily change of really making it happen?
Yeah, so at first it really just started with they call it social transition. For me, that just meant like I started getting shorter, more masculine, squarish kind of haircuts, and buying different clothes, like from the boys section. And the way it came out, it was very slow. Like at first, it was just to a few people, like to some people in my family, and then some people who I was a bit closer to at school, until I actually came out to my parents in a letter I just kind of left it on the table because like I wasn't, you know, it was it was kind of a big announcement to make to them, and it would be kind of scary to talk about face to face at first, and I also wanted to allow them like some time to just think about it. So yeah, they read that, and they were supportive initially. I mean, they wanted to support me. I mean, they loved me and they cared about me, but they weren't really sure what to do because I mean,
It's a totally new thing,
yeah,
especially for
especially
parenting.
then. This was like 2017, and there weren't like a whole lot of like resources out there. There wasn't a whole lot of people.
You know,
talking about this.
I just, I don't know. I might sound like I'm a millennial. I'm not a boomer, but I might sound like a boomer. I just remember growing up, like it being so hard to convince my parents to like, you know, get a piercing or like get a tattoo or something like that. But now it's like kids are going to their parents and saying, hey, I identify as a different sex or gender, and I want to go through a surgery now and just really just change my body. When it comes to the surgeries, how did you convince your parents? Like what was that process? Did you just like, this is what social media is telling me, now I got to go talk to my parents about this too? Or
That's where the doctors come in. So they actually sought professional help for me. They started making me see a therapist so that maybe I could kind of like get this sorted out, and maybe so that they could have a better understanding of what's going on. Because you know it's really a mental health problem, but that was a mistake because from then on it was basically just I was being constantly affirmed in this identity and this idea that I had. The therapist was just like, oh, you're a boy, all right, so I'll call you that. So you want to be referred to by a new name? Yeah, I'll call you that. And there was really no questioning. I was diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and I didn't know this until my parents and I talked about it just a few months ago. But apparently, behind my back, the doctors and therapists were basically like, so transgender adolescents have a high suicide rate. So if you don't affirm her identity, she could be at risk of suicide. Would you rather have a dead daughter or a live son?
that was said to your parents?
Yes.
Unbelievable. Let me ask you this then. So at that point, when I can allege this, I'll say, is that some kind of threat to your parents? I mean, hearing that as a parent is like, well, what do I do then? Were your parents just kind of put in a place where, well, the doctor's telling us our daughter might die if we don't do this, so we might as well do it? Is that kind of like how it happened?
Yeah, they're like, oh, children already know their gender from a very young age, so she knows what's best for herself, which, I mean, that basically goes against everything we know about child development. And they're basically like stripping my parents of the right to parent me.
Of course. And then now, because of what Matt Walsh has uncovered, we know that they're coming out and saying that trans kids are basically big money makers because they're patients for life. So it sounds like your parents were manipulated. You were manipulated not only through social media,
but by the doctors.
By the doctors as well, and pretty much direct threats by these medical health care professionals, right? So you and your family decide to go forward with the surgeries, the mutilation, right? How was that whole experience for you from beginning to end where you are right now, the negative and the aftermath of it?
So it started with the with blocking my puberty using medication called Lupron, and then there was like a month-long period between starting on that and the cross-sex hormones. I was 13 at the time when I started on both of these.
Wow.
The first endocrinologist that I was referred to actually didn't put me on these treatments. He didn't give me a prescription for these because he said that there could be some serious concerns for my brain development because I was starting them so young. And I mean, sex hormones are involved in some pretty crucial stages of brain development, especially in adolescence. But I didn't know this at the time, and I thought it was my gender specialist actually was frustrated with this and just referred me to another endocrinologist who would put me on these treatments. And so the next treatment was my double mastectomy, which I got at 15. And I'm kind of shocked at how short the time frame was. Like, it was, I would say, the first consultation with the surgeon, and the actual surgery was like only about like half a year, if even that. And there were some reasons why I started seeking the surgery, actually, because you know, I genuinely believed that I was a boy, and you know, I wanted to look like all the boys my age. And I also had been using, they call it like a chest binder, which it's a compression device that either covers about half or the whole torso, and it basically like flattens the breast against the rib cage. You know, I would like work out in that, or I would go swimming, or I mean, I'd be walking home from school in that in super hot weather, because you know, I live in the middle of California, where it gets to like, on the worst days it gets to like 115 degrees. So I would be walking home and wearing that thing, and it was just awful. And I really wanted to stop using it, because it was just an awful experience. But I also, and this was never really, I never really told anybody about this, but in 8th grade, when I was still pretty early in my transition, I actually had been sexually assaulted by a classmate within a classroom, and this caused me some pretty serious trauma that I didn't even realize at the time. But I couldn't speak up at the time, because you know, I knew that the school would just kind of like give him like a slap on the wrist on it, because I mean, it's not like he bruised me or anything. There was no mark. There was no proof. So if I spoke up about it, it could have just made the situation worse. He could have done something worse to me. And you know, I also, you know, I thought that I was actually a boy, so I kind of just told myself to man up about it and just kind of forget about it. But I mean, it really, I didn't really realize it until after I detransitioned. But that was something that affected me for a while, because I had a really bad fear of being sexually assaulted, and so naturally, the guy he groped my chest, and naturally I just wanted to hide that part of myself from the world, because it didn't feel safe just having that part of myself visible. And so I underwent the mastectomy, and you know, at first I was like happy that this part of my body was finally gone, and I was becoming, you know, my real self. But that happiness very quickly went away, because the post-op recovery is really tough. It was a major surgery, and it was in the upper area of my body, so I lost a bunch of range of motion for a little bit, especially in my arms. I couldn't lift my arms up for what, like 3 to 4 months, they said. And I've actually had about 2 years after the surgery, I've actually had a regression in my healing. I'm really not going to go into the gory details of it, because
Whatever you want.
I just don't want to like disturb. I don't want to disturb anybody, because it's pretty gnarly stuff.
Yeah.
But I have to like wear bandages over my chest now, every day. That was something that I was supposed to stop doing like a few weeks post-op, and I've had to start doing that again. So like I basically have like a big like wound on my chest. They grafted and I'm really sorry for how graphic this is, but they not only like took the tissue out of my breast, but they also they removed my nipples as well, and basically like put them back on, and that has caused some pretty serious complications for me, and I just haven't been really getting any help with that, unfortunately.
You know, it's my heart hurts hearing this stuff. Thank you for sharing this stuff with me. But you know, I wanted to ask you is, you know, when it comes to your future, how has this affected your view on your future for having a family or being a mother someday or having that? Do you see how these people have manipulated you and destroyed your life? Like where do you see now? What do you see now?
I actually took a psychology and child development class, and that was really kind of what broke the whole illusion for me. It was like, wow, I'm just a kid. That was the first time it really occurred to me, and I was like, I was not equipped to make this decision, and there's things about like breastfeeding. They told me that I wouldn't be able to breastfeed anymore, but I didn't really understand like the gravity of that because
you're
13? I was 15 when
15?
I underwent the mastectomy, and I knew like nothing about like child development, but in that class I learned that breastfeeding and like physical touch is kind of like a crucial part in the bond between the mother and the child, and I had that taken away from me forever when I didn't really understand that, and I'm definitely not going to be able to breastfeed my children once I have kids. But I don't even know if I'm going to be able to conceive, naturally carry my children, because I was put on cross-sex hormones and blockers at only 13, and I don't even know like where I am now in terms of development. I'm just kind of in the dark about a lot of things, and even my overall health has kind of been impacted by all of this.
Let me ask you this real quick. So now that you're in this place where you kind of like see the light, and you realize what's been done to you, and there's a lot of negative impact, not only psychologically but physically for the rest of your life. Where are these doctors now? Where are these therapists now? Is there something there for you to come back to when you decide to detrans, or are you just left to figure it out on your own, I guess?
No, I basically had to figure out everything on my own, like from like the medical aspect of things to, I lost a bunch of friends, so I had to like navigate like senior year with no friends, and I lost a whole community of people that used to support me and celebrate every milestone that I reached in my transition, and it's been tough.
So if you go to these same doctors right now and ask them, I need help, kind of like, obviously the physical reversal is not possible, but I need help, like kind of like getting my life back.
Yeah,
what will they tell you?
Yeah, the endocrinologists and like physicians are kind of just like, the response varies from either like oh, you're gonna be fine, you're gonna be okay from now on, or it's like, oh, we don't have a whole lot of data on people like you, so we can't really answer that question for you. And my surgeon, I've actually followed up with him a few years after, and I told him that I detransitioned, and that I'm having some pretty serious complications with this, and it really felt like he was kind of just rushing me through appointment. First of all, I couldn't even get like a physical appointment with him. It was just over a call, and he when I told him about the complications, he just gave me advice that made them worse. So I don't feel like I can reach out to these people anymore.
Absolutely unreal. And people, I'm very loud on this show, and I get pissed a lot because of this stuff. And, people may not understand why. Now you know why. Because of these kinds of stories. And, I want to tell you, I love you. God loves you. Here at Turning Point, we support you, as much as we possibly can. And I want to thank you for coming in. And we're not done. This is just part one of this interview with Chloe. We're going to continue this conversation. You guys can watch it tomorrow night at the same time on Real America's Voice. Real quick, just in case they can't make it, Chloe, where can people follow you and see all your content and all your great work and whatever you have going on?
So I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at, my ad's kind of might be a little bit confusing. It's CHOOOCOLE. Chucole. It's a nickname, so.
Well, there you have it. We're going to continue this conversation tomorrow night. We hope to see you guys there. My name is Drew Hernandez. These are the Frontlines. I'll see you guys tomorrow night.
We must play offense. Game on.
You expect the rest of the world to live in La La Land. We're not.
We've been saying these things from day one.
Our solemn vow to you, be good, be brief, be gone.
You might find yourself changing your opinion on things you never even thought twice about. That really sets America apart.
You are not ready for season 2. This is Reloaded.
My life tale and my truth has been to fight socialism.
Are you familiar with structural racism?
Yeah, it's a myth.